Welcome to the Putback on SNY.TV. I'm SNY NBA insider Ian Begley, and we are here with a couple great guests to break down Knicks-Cavs. And if you're a longtime Knicks fan, this is probably the best you've felt maybe in 10 years, maybe even 20 plus years, because this team is one win away from doing something that's only happened once this century, and that's make it to the second round of the playoffs. 3-1 series lead on the Cleveland Cavaliers. To me, what you saw in Game 4 Sunday, which was a total team effort by the Knicks, was really a reflection of how their offseason moves kind of led them to this point, because you had R.J. Barrett contributing in a big way. Knicks obviously held off on dealing Barrett in any Donovan Mitchell trade talks, and they extended him. You had Mitchell Robinson really impacting things at the rim defensively, occupying bodies on the defensive end and making things difficult for Cleveland in the interior. Knicks re-signed Mitchell Robinson to a 4-year, $60 million deal. And then obviously Jalen Brunson making so many big shots down the stretch for the Knicks and really doing a great job when Cleveland sent 2 defenders at him in finding an open teammate, getting a good look for a teammate, made the offense go. And Josh Hart, Isaiah Hartenstein playing well with Robinson out. Obviously, their second big free agent acquisition. And then Hart, I mean, what can you say? Their big trade deadline acquisition, and he was great in the starting lineup in place of Quentin Grimes, who was hurt, defended Donovan Mitchell really well, gave the Knicks all they needed on offense. So really just a one day, right? Things can change Game 5, Game 6, or Game 7. But for Game 4, it was really a strong picture of what that offseason was, what the trade deadline was, and how the Knicks had hoped it worked out. So great performance from New York. We move on to Cleveland, Game 5. We got Chris Fedor with us, excellent Cavs beat writer from Cleveland.com. And he's been covering this thing all series. He's been on top of the adjustments that the Cavs have been making. And Chris, you spoke to JB Bickerstaff on Sunday after his post-game press conference. You guys talked a little strategy. What did you learn from that conversation?
I just wanted to ask him, Ian, why he would start Darius Garland on Jalen Brunson, because, I think everybody that was sitting in the press box the other day, they were sitting there saying, okay, Karis LeVert doing a pretty good job, Isaac Okoro doing a pretty good job, and then Sunday rolls around, and then the first possession of the game, it's Darius Garland matched up against Jalen Brunson, a matchup that you would think would favor the Knicks, and the Knicks would want in this particular series. So I just said, hey, what went into that situation? And he said, hey, look, we were going to throw a lot of different bodies at Jalen throughout the course of the game. We thought Darius could execute the game plan properly. We thought Darius could send Jalen to some of the help that was waiting behind in Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley. And we understand that Jalen is a problem for us on the offensive end of the floor, like what he's doing offensively for the Knicks. He is running them well. He is getting everybody involved. He's hitting clutch shots for them. So we were just trying to do something different to counter some of the stuff that the Knicks were doing in Game 3. And the strategy backfired because not only did Darius get cooked by Jalen, and he's gotten cooked in this series by Jalen, when guarding Jalen Brunson, Darius Garland has allowed Brunson to score 20 points on 8 of 14 from the field. And on top of that, Ian, a big reason why the Cavs gave up so many offensive rebounds beyond Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley getting pushed around by New York's bigs, more than 60% of the offensive rebounds that the Knicks collected came after the Cavs trapped Jalen, and they were scrambling around trying to get back in the right position.
Yeah, it's just great context from you, Chris. And it was interesting because, earlier in the series, there were more than a few possessions where it was Mitchell Robinson setting a screen, Julius Randle setting a screen, and Mitchell Robinson in particular, where he found the ball after setting the screen, and it didn't go well from there because the Cavs kind of stayed at home, and Robinson, they allowed him to be the ball handler in that situation. It didn't work out. But then later on in this series, you talk about adjustments. Tom Thibodeau and the coaching staff, seems to me that they found an edge here with those guard-to-guard, wing-to-guard screens with Brunson, because it really opens up things for them coming off of the screen. If you're going to throw to it, Brunson, as you mentioned, Knicks have had an advantage on the other side of the floor or the middle of the floor. And after struggling in Game 2 with that trap, the Knicks, I think, have done pretty well countering it, figuring it out and finding ways to exploit it. So credit Tom Thibodeau and his group for getting the Knicks to this point in the series. Chris, you look at Game 5. You've been around this team all year, obviously. What do you expect from them going into Game 5, playing at home, backs against the wall?
They have been a team, Ian, that throughout the course of the year has been good in terms of bouncing back and seeing the things that they've done wrong, seeing the things that could be better, addressing those and fixing them. But it's hard to know exactly what to expect from this team after the first 4 games in this series, right? You know, I thought the Cavs were going to come out a lot better in Game 4, backs against the wall, down 2-1 in the series, playing a matinee game, a chance to rip back home court advantage. And Jared Allen said after the game, he didn't see any kind of desperation from the team. And you could feel that, right? There was a lack of urgency. There was a lack of physicality. There was a lack of intensity. Watching the Cavs play Game 4, you would not have thought that they were the team trailing 2-1. You would have thought that they were the team up 2-1, very, very comfortable, feeling like they went to New York and accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. So it's hard to say that the Cavs have learned from some of the things that have happened in the series, and it's hard to predict which team is going to show up in Game 5. Obviously, they're better at home than they are on the road. That's played itself out throughout the course of the season. They get a boost from Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse fans. Their role players play better at home than they do on the road. So all of those things are advantageous for them going into Game 5. But the way that they've played through the first 4 games, it just isn't with the playoff level force, intensity, urgency, all those things that should be a prerequisite this time of year.
Yeah, surprising to me. And look, I have no idea how different people respond to different situations. I know probably Knicks fans want to assume that the Garden crowd had something to do with that. The Cavs not being maybe as aggressive as you would expect in Game 4. But look, the bottom line is the Knicks sitting here at 3-1. 95% of NBA teams that go up 3-1 go on to win this series. So Wednesday, maybe the Cavs bring it back to a Game 6. Maybe they even bring it back to a Game 7. But the odds are in the Knicks' favor right now. And the one thing that I'm keeping an eye on, in terms of matchups and how players are utilized, Isaac Okoro has kind of bounced around a little bit all over the place in this series. And I know that one of the things you talked to JB Bickerstaff about was, his usage. Can you give us some insight into what JB said about Isaac coming out of Game 4?
Yeah, and I think his response, Ian, highlights one of the issues that has become so glaring for the Cavs in these first 4 games. It's every decision that JB Bickerstaff makes is going to have a domino effect. So we'll get into that in a minute, but with Isaac specifically, okay, you like him because of his defense against Jalen Brunson. You like him because you feel like that's the most physical defender who's going to fight through the screens, and he's going to make it as hard on Jalen as anybody on this Cavs roster. And that's great. And you feel like he's going to box out. He's not going to give up offensive rebounds. Stylistically, he is the kind of player that belongs in this rock fight series. But then on the other end of the floor, you say to yourself, well, we're trying to make things easier on Darius Garland. We're trying to make things easier on Donovan Mitchell. We're trying to create space because the Knicks are packing the paint and they're trying to take the paint away. That's Tom Thibodeau's ethos. That doesn't work with Isaac Okoro because his defender is 9-10 feet away from him, just not even bothering to close out, not even believing that he can knock down those open shots. So there's a give and take with a lot of these decisions for JB Bickerstaff, including the one with Isaac Okoro. Are you going to get offense from Isaac? No, you're not. Are you going to get shooting from Isaac? No, you're not. Are you going to get spacing from Isaac? No, you're not. It's a congested court every single time he's out there. And JB told me he considered finishing with Isaac late in that game because of the way that he was defending, because of the way that he was hustling, because of the physicality that he was bringing on the defensive end of the floor. But he got multiple wide open corner threes. The Knicks invited that repeatedly, and he missed them. So JB went to a more reliable shooter in Jetty Osman instead, trying to see, would that create space? Would that give us an offensive boost? We might be losing something on the defensive end of the floor, but we got to create space and make things easier on our guards. And that's been what has been a running theme for the Cavs with all of these decisions. If they're going to go one guy, they'll gain on offense, lose on defense. If they go to another guy, they're going to gain on defense and lose on offense. If they're going to trap Jalen Brunson, which is a smart strategy, right? You want to take the ball out of his hands, make somebody else beat you. Okay, that's great, but then you're giving up 70% offensive rebounds because all of your guys are scrambling around and not in the right position. If you don't trap Jalen Brunson, you have anybody but Isaac, really, that can make things consistently tough on him. So there's just like not a lot of places that JB Bickerstaff at this point in the series feels like he can go and get the right answers to the tests that he wants to get.
Yeah, there's certainly no foolproof move with that Cleveland roster. And, depth is big in the postseason. I think it's clear at this point that this Knick roster has more depth than Cleveland. Look no further than Sunday when Quentin Grimes, their starter, is out due to a shoulder injury. Josh Hart, their leader off the bench, slides into the starting lineup seamlessly. And Miles McBride, they use for spot minutes against Donovan Mitchell. I played for 5 minutes, but he was fantastic defensively. And he really gave them a lift on an afternoon where, again, you're without a starting player, a player who's done a lot for you all year. You don't have him. And the Knicks really didn't miss a beat. So I think the depth there for New York. And again, you go to Tom Thibodeau and you go to the front office, credit there for finding those players and using those players. And I think also, Chris, the center battle for me has been interesting. It was something coming into this series where I didn't know which way it was going to go. Mitchell Robinson, his first postseason, he had a very good regular season. You don't know how he's going to play in the postseason. He's been excellent to me around the rim, not only blocking shots, but deterring shots, deterring drives. And it seems like so far he's gotten the best of Jared Allen. How do you see that center matchup thus far in the series, and has anything surprised you? I think we are without Chris.
I think we might have lost Chris, Ian. I got you. I'm here.
Thank you, Matthew.
No problem. No problem. See, I would have been on the show before, but Aaron Rodgers decided that now would be the best time to get traded to the Jets as soon as we go on with our NBA coverage. So that's how it goes.
NFL news, huh? Little NFL news.
That's right. All right, Ian, one thing I wanted to discuss was really the bigs in general. Evan Mobley and Jared Allen versus the Mitchell Robinson aspect that's played out in this series, the way those guys have played, where Mitch has outplayed them. And Mobley was a Defensive Player of the Year finalist, had an excellent year. He's only 21. But I really think as a Knicks fan, and all the Knicks community, the way Robinson has played in the playoffs, I think has proven that he's on par with those guys in terms of the playoff performance. So how have you felt about the bigs and how they've played in the series and how that matchup has played out?
Yeah, I'm surprised at how well the Knicks have dominated that center matchup. And you go back to game 2, Knicks centers, both of them struggled. I'll go back to Mitchell Robinson as a screener and getting the ball and not really having a lot of success with it in that scenario. So you credit there the Knicks coaches to going away from that, more guard screens later in the series. Robinson defensively and on the other end of the floor has been a load for the Cavs because he's either blocking shots, deterring drives. On the other end, you're seeing possessions. There was a possession on Sunday where both Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are boxing out or paying attention to Mitchell Robinson when a Knicks shot goes up because they know Robinson's going to try to get the offensive rebound. And that leaves the Cavs vulnerable to giving up an offensive rebound to another Knick. Again, you saw it a few times Sunday. You've seen it a few times throughout the series. So that just tells you how much of an impact Robinson is making. You're not going to see it necessarily in the numbers, but you're going to see it when you look at how the Cavs interior, which was a big strength for them in the regular season, has kind of been neutralized here. So you give credit to Mitchell Robinson and a lot of credit to Isaiah Hartenstein, who's given the Knicks important minutes throughout the series.
Hartenstein especially, too. That center rotation that they've had, all 48 minutes. And, Ian, I'm pretty sure it was your question also that got the great Mitch quote saying if they were getting shook when they got in the paint, which was just a fantastic clip from Mitch.
That was fun. He's fun.
Yeah, he's great. Ian, I want to give you credit for one thing here because I know one thing we've talked about consistently throughout the year is RJ. And I think he was a huge story over the last couple of games. And one thing you've pointed out consistently is that because of his work ethic, because of the type of guy that he is, that you expect him always to reach his potential, his full potential as a player. And I think for me, he's one of those guys when we get into a game 4 scenario at the Garden, I have zero concerns about his ability to show up for the moment. Now, he might not make his shots. He might not play well. But I know that he's not going to be fazed by that. So wanted to give you props for your RJ take. And what have you seen from him? Why have things worked so well? And what's your sense on just why he's been able to step up to the moment?
I appreciate that, Matthew. I do think, like, man, you go back to games 1 and 2, you had Stephen A. Smith saying RJ Barrett shouldn't be playing in this series over those 2 games. You had JJ Redick, really critiquing Barrett and his play, and it was deserved. And I think you had Zach Lowe also saying, where are we now with RJ Barrett as a playoff performer, considering what's happened? And so I don't know if he listens to any of those, any media. I don't know if any of it gets to him. Maybe his friends send it to him. But if I'm 22 years old and I'm hearing that, look, man, I'm mentally weak. I might fold. But RJ Barrett, to his credit, just even keel, unbothered, focused on the work. He said he started to find his shot after game 2, working on it over the course of the week. And obviously he found it in a big way this weekend. And it just speaks to mental toughness and also a belief in himself that he knows he's going to figure things out in the long haul. And that's what you've seen from him over the course of his Knick career so far. So I understand why some people were out on RJ Barrett after games 1 and 2, because it was not pretty. But I don't think you should ever bet against him long term, because you've seen the body of work long enough to know that he is going to bounce back and he's going to play to the best of his ability over a large sample size.
Don't be tough on yourself, Ian. You're mentally tough too. Don't be tough on yourself like that.
Well, listen, Matt, I appreciate you jumping on with us in a pinch, and we're going to sign off because big NFL news. Aaron Rodgers, I guess, is a Jet, so soak it up, Jet fans. But we're going to be back at the Putback here after Game 5. We'll be back with you guys to break it all down, either going into Game 6 or the next series for the Knicks. We look forward to seeing everybody then. Our thanks to Chris Fedor, Cleveland.com, great Cavs beat writer, and Matt Spenley for joining us.